What's going on, guys, and welcome to my Friday Night SmackDown review for September 10th, 2021. I am Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. We haven't done a SmackDown review consistently in quite a while. We did one 2 weeks ago. I was in Chicago last week. I didn't watch SmackDown until late Friday night. We were out on Saturday. That was a busy day. I didn't do a SmackDown review the weekend of SummerSlam 3 weeks ago, that would have been. So I promise you, it's not an every other week thing for my SmackDown audio reviews. And I had to do one for this episode because it was it was one of the strongest shows that WWE has done all year. The best SmackDown I've seen all year. One of the best WWE shows, period, I have seen all year in 2021. And that includes the first SmackDown back on the road, the SmackDown right before Money in the Bank. I thought that was a great show. This was even better. I am biased because I was there last night at Madison Square Garden. It was an amazing atmosphere. I had a great time. I've been to a lot of Raws and a lot of SmackDowns. Last night was one of the best overall episodes of WWE TV, not counting pay-per-views, that I have ever been in attendance for. I'm very excited to be breaking it down here today. But like I said, we haven't done a SmackDown review weekly in a while. I was gone, like I said, in Vegas 3 weeks ago. Couldn't do one that weekend. I was gone last week in Chicago for AEW All Out weekend. Couldn't do one then. That was a good show as well. We will be making it a weekly occurrence going forward. Now, about a month ago, 3 weeks to 4 weeks ago, I don't remember exactly when it was. I think it was a month ago, which it doesn't feel like it was a month ago. RJ and I did a double review of SmackDown and Rampage. It was a live stream here on the channel. So I am toying with the idea of doing that going forward. So when we record Wrestle Rant Radio every Thursday, we don't get a chance to talk about SmackDown or Rampage because by the time we talk on Thursday mornings, SmackDown from the week prior and Rampage from the week prior are kind of old news. So I'm thinking I'm going to continue the SmackDown reviews, but I'm toying with two ideas. One, including my reviews of both Rampage and SmackDown here on the channel, which I probably will do. Rampage is only an hour. It's not like another 2-hour show and the video is going to be twice the length. I'm not doing it this week. I enjoyed Rampage. I have watched it. I watched it on the train ride home last night. I thoroughly enjoyed Andrade and Pac up until the lousy finish, but it was what it was. I thought it was a good show, though, overall. So I'm either going to do that, do a double review of SmackDown and Rampage here on the channel every Saturday, and or do a live stream, do the reviews in live stream form. It makes it a lot easier for me to do live streams. I don't have a set schedule as far as I'm going to do it at 10 a.m. or noon every single Saturday Eastern time, blah, blah, blah. At least not right now. I really don't have any desire to kind of tie myself down to do it in one particular time. Some weeks I can't catch the shows live. I got to watch them late on Friday night or early on Saturday morning, or I got to go out and do something on Saturday, or I'm going to a show. I've been at a wrestling show, I think, every weekend for the last fucking month. I was at SmackDown last night. Rampage, actually. It's funny, I was at Rampage last week, SmackDown this week, but we were at Rampage and All Out last weekend. The weekend before that, I wasn't at anything, but the weekend before that was SummerSlam weekend. I was there for SummerSlam, and then we went to a Northeast Wrestling Indie show in, Poughkeepsie, New York, 4 weeks ago. So I'm all wrestling showed out for right now. I've been to a lot of shows this year, during a pandemic year, no less, and I still have more plans to go to more shows in the months to come in the remainder of 2021. I know Raw's in Boston this week, and I love Boston. I would love to be back for that, but just it's too much, and it's also Monday Night Raw, so why would I put that on myself, So like I said, I'm toying with the idea of doing a double review SmackDown and Rampage. Keep an eye out for that. I probably will do that. The live streams are just a lot easier as far as, because when I do these type of videos, I got to record it, I got to process the video, and then I got to upload it. That's like a 3-hour process, if not more sometimes, depending on how long it takes to upload to YouTube. Sometimes it can be 30 minutes, sometimes it can be 2 hours. It depends on the day. And when I do the live streams, I just hit a button, I go live, I get to interact with you guys if you're available on a Saturday morning. We didn't get a lot of interaction for our SmackDown Rampage review about a month ago, but that's because I never really advertised it. We just kind of went live, and that was it. So I would love to do more of that, and live streaming as soon as the stream is over. The video is already up. I don't really have to do anything aside from putting it up on WrestleRant.com. So keep an eye out for that in the weeks to come. I might try something out with that as far as the Rampage and SmackDown live streams go. So let's get right into the show, guys. September 10th, 2021 edition of SmackDown live from Madison Square Garden in New York City. It was 2 years ago from the day prior on September 9th. I was last at MSG for Raw, which was also one of the better overall episodes of Raw I've ever been in attendance for. Stone Cold was on that show. I think they had a title match, if I remember correctly. It was a really fun night of wrestling, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. They really stacked that show as well. I don't know why it takes them going to MSG to really go all out with their shows. Maybe Raw should have been in MSG this week just to make that show better. And I thought this past week's Raw was decent, but decent for them is like awful by every other show's standards, including SmackDown. But it was great to be back in the Garden. We had a chance, courtesy of WWE. I appreciate the company for this. Getting a early screener, or not really a screener. I mean, it already went live on WWE's YouTube channel and social platforms early on Friday. But we got a chance to attend a private screening of the WWE Never Forget documentary. As it was 20 years ago today, of course, how can I not mention this? The 20-year anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, the terrorist attacks, and one of the worst days, if not the worst day in our country's history. And it was really cool for us to be able to attend that, watch the documentary. I had avoided it up to that point, didn't watch it before we went. We got to hear from Stephanie and Zelina Vega. There were a lot of other superstars there. McIntyre was at this thing. The Profits were just casually walking around, Natalya, Tamina with their tag titles. Didn't get a chance to converse with any of them. I don't like to be that person. But they seemed really cool. They were all there for it. Among other foundations in the area like the 9/11 Foundation, a children's foundation, charities, stuff like that. They presented championship titles to them. Zelina spoke for a little while. I was bummed to hear that she had a match on the show, because Stephanie even said during the screening or right beforehand that, we're so honored to have Zelina Vega, one of our superstars, here today, as her father was killed in the 9/11 attacks 20 years ago, and she's going to be here at MSG later on performing at the same place where she used to go and consider a second home with her dad, bond over wrestling, blah, blah, blah. And then she got her match cut, which, I'm going to mention this right out of the gate, was pretty shitty for them to do. I thought this was an amazing show, like I said. I can't say I was sitting there clamoring for a tag team match between Zelina Vega, Carmella, Toni Storm, and Liv Morgan. My biggest issue with it is that I like all the women in the match. The match would have been fine. I feel bad for everyone involved. Getting your match cut off the show, knowing you're going to be in MSG, that would have been the MSG debut of Toni Storm, right? Probably Zelina Vega, I'm almost positive. Liv Morgan, maybe. I feel like she's probably been there before, I would have to imagine. And Carmella has almost definitely been there before. But still, it would have been a big deal for all of them to be back in front of that crowd. It was a rowdy audience last night, fucking packed house in MSG. And they had their match cut. But I especially feel bad for Zelina. Because like I said, she was affected by the 9/11 attacks 20 years ago. It was the eve of that anniversary. She had that whole thing earlier on in the night. So still, it would have been a very special moment for her. She had her gear made. She probably had family there. And we come to find out she had her match cut. Now, it was very possible for them to include that match on the show. I would not have complained about, like, it was a 2-minute match. What a waste of time. Normally, I would say that, but in this circumstance, would it have made the show any better to have that match in the show? Probably not. But from a personal standpoint, to have her on the show for such a important occasion would have really been a big deal. And the fact they cut it for time, they just cut it altogether, is a real bummer. I mean, they could have done it as a dark match, and they didn't even do that. So, they could have shaved a couple minutes off the Rollins-Edge match, which I fucking loved. But you could take a couple minutes off of that. The tag team title main event got a ton of time. That went like 25 minutes, which again, loved the match. It was great stuff. But you could have cut off 5 minutes and then given 2 of those minutes to the match itself and the entrances and whatever. And I'm sure it would have just, even that, being in the ring, in that building on that night, would have meant the world to her. And they didn't do it. So that was really shitty, I thought. But other than that, though, this was an amazing episode. So kicking off the actual show, once we sat down, we got great seats, which was awesome. We had an awesome view. Was Roman Reigns, who had a massive reaction in Madison Square Garden. MSG loves the Tribal Chief. And he got a lot of boos as well. But just the reaction he got, I mean, the guy's an absolute fucking superstar. You cannot convince me otherwise. Not that you would even attempt to, but he is. It's obvious, it's apparent, from just listening to the reactions he gets in these buildings. So he comes out with Heyman, with the Usos, addressing The fact that he is facing Finn Balor for the Universal Championship, I don't know when that was made official. I see the graphic on the big screen while he's making his entrance. Holy shit, they're doing the match at the pay-per-view. Because remember, Roman beat Balor last week. Not clean, like he low-blowed him. The Usos attacked Balor beforehand. But they did do the match a week ago and Roman won. So I'm thinking, how will they explain doing another match? And they didn't even have like the authority figures come out. Maybe they did something on their website. I don't know. But I just see the graphic. I'm like, oh, well, there you go. There's the match at the pay-per-view. So Roman spoke for a little while about that, and then out comes Brock Lesnar to another, again, massive reaction. We knew he was going to be there. He was advertised for the show. The place still went nuts anyway. This gave me vibes of when Stone Cold was in the building 2 years ago for that Raw. One of the loudest reactions I have ever heard live. You have not experienced being a wrestling fan until you have experienced a Stone Cold reaction in person, let alone in Madison Square Garden. So Brock comes out not only still with the beard and the ponytail, which I fucking love, but also with I think a denim jacket or not a denim jacket, but like a vest or I don't know what exactly you would call it. Like a flannel. He was coming out wearing a flannel and looking great. I love babyface Brock. And for anyone saying, oh, this is the first time we've seen Brock as a babyface, isn't technically true. I would consider that period coming out of WrestleMania 31 for when he was a babyface. When he got screwed out of the championship, Rollins cashing in, they had that brief feud. He ended up rekindling his rivalry with Taker right after that. I would argue he came across more of a babyface in that feud early on than Taker did. But still, I would say that was babyface Brock for a little while. And that didn't really last long. But I think babyface Brock, there is no doubt in my mind. I've always said that Brock is more of a, he's more of a Brock Lesnar. He's not a face, he's a heel. He's not a heel. He's Brock fucking Lesnar. But there's no doubt at this point that he is absolutely a babyface. Based off how people are reacting to him, how they're portraying him on the show, there can be no doubt about that. So we heard more from Brock in this segment than I would say at any other point on his own in the last, decade. Like, we heard him here and there, cut a couple of good lines, or, one-liners, or very brief promos. But I cannot remember the last time that we've ever heard from Brock Lesnar as much as we did in this segment. And I fucking love it. If the ultimate endgame to this angle is Roman turning on Paul and then Paul realigning with Brock, I'm cool with that, but I honestly would like to see Brock on his own until he completely drops the ball on the mic. And they give him some terrible thing to say, or they have him talk for 20 minutes, cut a fucking monologue like he did when he first came back 9 years ago, and they had that contract signing that was not very good, and that was kind of the catalyst that brought back Paul Heyman to the company a few weeks later. Not long after at all. So that's how I know it was that promo that really led to them bringing Paul Heyman back to serve as his mouthpiece. But anyway, I thought he was great here. This whole segment was perfect. Roman and the Usos bailed on Heyman after Brock said, hey, Paul, why didn't you tell Roman Reigns that I was going to be at SummerSlam? Revealing that Paul knew ahead of time that Brock was going to be there. So Roman and the Usos ball, and then Heyman's still in the ring with Brock. They're doing the old shtick. And he's the reigning, defending Brock Lesnar, blah, blah, blah. Crowd eats this shit up. And then Brock's like, I'm going to give you till the count of 5 to I forgot what he said. Did not tell me that you're bullshitting or something along those lines. Lesnar, or rather Heyman, did not comply. Ends up getting up on the shoulders of Brock Lesnar. Lesnar picks up Heyman, about to deliver the F5. And it was just incredible. So Roman comes in the ring, delivers a Superman punch to Brock. Brock's about to F5 Roman. And then the Usos come in the ring, give Brock a pair of super kicks. Brock does not like that. Goes right after the Usos. I don't know if he did an F5. He definitely did a couple of suplexes to both Usos. And that was the end of the segment. So the crowd ate this up. This was a hot opener. I wish we can get more openers like this on all other WWE shows, because this was awesome stuff. And this wasn't even the peak of the evening. It wasn't a great segment and the show is downhill from there. No, this was an overall great show. An excellent episode of SmackDown, and this was an awesome way to kick off the festivities. So very good stuff here. And I honestly thought because the Usos were attacked in this match, that they were going to lose, because they made a very subtle mention. In the arena, you couldn't see it on the big screen. I saw it on the big screen up top, that it was going to be the Usos and the Profits on the show in the main event for the SmackDown Tag Team title. So I'm thinking, oh shit, the fact that they got attacked here, does that mean they're dropping the belts later? That was my big question. Obviously they didn't, but it added a lot of intrigue to that main event, I will say. But before then, though, we got a 10-man tag team extravaganza on the show, with pretty much all of SmackDown's mid-card competitors, directionless mid-card competitors right now, and Cesaro and Owens weren't even on the show. Like, this was most of SmackDown's mid-card, and we still didn't have Kevin Owens, who was rumored to be AEW bound, which is, I feel like, is part of the reason why he wasn't on the show at all, despite being on the show last week with Corbin and Logan Paul. Corbin was in a dark match on the show. The dark match before the show that we saw like the last minute of was Charlotte Flair, I believe, versus Rhea Ripley for the Raw Women's Championship, which I'm sure was a great match. But yeah, Owens was not on the show. Cesaro was not on the show, which was a bummer. Cesaro actually makes sense because he was attacked by Rollins last week. So he was selling the attack from Edge, or rather from Rollins. That makes sense. Owens not being on the show is a bit more strange. Corbin was at the building. He was in a dark match. Owens was nowhere to be seen. So I'm not sure if he wasn't there. I have no idea. They probably just didn't use him. So the 10-man tag team match saw Big E, the Intercontinental Champion King Nakamura, Rick Boogs, and Rey and Dominic Mysterio knock off the 5-man team of Apollo Crews, Dolph Ziggler, Robert Roode, Otis, and Chad Gable. So the biggest thing in this match, and actually I don't even know, was Sami Zayn even in the match? Like, I just wrote down the 5 competitors. Maybe Gable wasn't in the match. Maybe it was just Otis. I don't remember. But Zayn was definitely involved because he ate the pinfall. But he brought out Atlanta Hawk star Trae Young, whose name I probably have heard before. I don't follow basketball really at all. But the fact that he was there got a real rise out of these people. The MSG crowd did not like this at all. Obviously, that was the desired reaction because Zayn was wearing a Knicks jersey, I think. That was funny. He got a lot of heat for it. Did Trae Young for coming out. Obviously, I guess he's a big. Yeah, I think they knocked the Knicks out of the out of the NBA Finals or whatever the fuck it was. So we got a lot of heat in the building, and that was a great reaction. I knew nothing about the guy, and it was still a funny-ass moment. The match itself was pretty much what you would expect. Good stuff. I enjoyed it. It was short, sweet, while it lasted, well wrestled while it lasted. The right team won. The right guy picked up the pinfall victory, that being Big E pinning Sami Zayn, who then got on the mic afterward being interviewed by Caleb Braxton, acknowledging the fact that he is Mr. Money in the Bank, and this might not be the last time we would see him on the show. And he went on to kind of tease something with Heyman backstage right after this. Obviously, that was the last time we saw him on the show. He did not cash in his contract on this episode. But still, this was probably the most attention I've seen Big E get as Mr. Money in the Bank since winning the damn thing 2 months ago. So they're wanting to remind you that he has the contract in his possession, could cash in at any time. And I love the fact that Roman has so many enemies right now. Like, he has enemies in Brock Lesnar. That's a future match, probably for the Saudi show in October. He made an enemy out of Finn Balor, who he's facing at the next pay-per-view. He has an enemy in Big E, who could cash in at any time. And I would prefer to see Big E cash in personally on Roman Reigns than Bobby Lashley. I just think it makes more sense. So that's 3 potential enemies right there, and that's not even mentioning the fact he just beat John Cena 3 weeks ago at SummerSlam, and all the other enemies he's made on SmackDown in recent months, like the Mysterios, Cesaro, Kevin Owens, Edge. I mean, he has a lot of enemies on SmackDown, does Roman Reigns. I love it. So anyway, the 10-man tag team match was fun while it lasted. We then had the contract signing for the SmackDown Women's Championship match at Extreme Rules, featuring Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch. Lynch got more boos here than I was expecting. They kind of played along with her heel promo. I thought she was great here. She called herself the original WrestleMania headliner. She came out wearing that ridiculous pair of sunglasses and that robe that she was wearing before she got pregnant early last year and took time off. That was great. It's perfect heel Becky. Like I was saying at that time, turn her heel because her character was stale. The problem with it now is that people want to cheer Becky because she was gone for so long. So I feel like the turn her heel now is a dumb thing. It's not like the Roman thing. I know they were comparing it to that, or Becky was, or someone in the company was. It's not even remotely the same thing. People were not ready to boo Becky Lynch. They were very much ready to boo Roman Reigns, even though there were no people in attendance last year. They were not ready to boo Becky Lynch upon her return. They're going to anyway, based on how they're positioning her. Bianca got a great reaction. I thoroughly enjoyed this. This was the 3rd straight week where they've gone back and forth on the mic, and they knocked it out of the fucking park. I know there was not a women's match on the show. If it was different circumstances, I really would not mind the fact that the tag team match wasn't on this show. But because the whole connection with Vega and the occasion and whatnot, they obviously probably should have done something. They obviously should have done the match or had her on the show in some form or fashion or done a dark match or whatever. But, it was the only women's segment on the show. We saw Tegan and Shotzi backstage very briefly later on with Paul Heyman. I think that was it, though. But this was great stuff, and it set the stage very nicely for their SmackDown Women's Championship clash at Extreme Rules in 2 weeks' time. The best part coming out of the segment was not only the segment itself, but was when Becky said, well, what if I don't sign the contract? What if I don't sign in? What happens then? We didn't get a fucking answer. We never got an answer. I was hoping that DeVille or Pierce, who were there to monitor the segment and to kind of supervise it and whatnot, would say, well, we'll strip you of the championship. I don't even think they said that unless I forgot or missed something. I don't even think they said anything in reference to that. So what would happen? We've never had a contract signing where the contract wasn't signed. We had a contract signing a month and a half ago where John Cena signed it instead of Finn Balor. That was bullshit from a storyline standpoint. Balor got screwed in that circumstance. But we have yet to have a contract signing where the contract wasn't signed. I don't think in the last 20 years they've been doing this shit. So that was funny. The overall segment was great, though. Speaking of great, we got the rematch from SummerSlam between Seth Rollins and Edge on this episode, on this day. Speaking of on this day, holy shit. The crowd, being there live, I can tell you this firsthand. Maybe other people there can disagree with me. Maybe it was just my section or side of the arena. I don't know. From what I could hear, and I have it on video, the crowd was singing every word of Edge's entrance song. Not just on this day, I see clearly. Literally, the entire first 20, 30 seconds of the song. They knew every fucking word. And they were loud. I watched the reaction back on YouTube. They were even louder in the building than they were on TV. And I don't think the singing really came across on TV as much as it did in the arena. They knew every fucking word of this guy's theme song. It was an amazing moment. And Edge looked like the happiest person in the world. He looked like a kid in the candy store, standing on that ring, the great black and pink attire in honor of fellow Canadian Bret Hart. You can never go wrong there. You got fucking CM Punk wearing a Bret Hart shirt recently on Rampage. I think it was last week. You got Edge with the pink and black here in MSG. Bret Hart getting a lot of love in 2021. You love to see it. But yeah, Edge looked like, oh my God, he looked so happy out there. Got a great reaction. He was out in the ring for a while during commercial. They played a song for a little while. People were pissed when they turned it off. They wanted to hear the whole thing. He was interacting with everyone. He looked so happy. That really brought a lot of joy to my heart watching that. Rollins came out to a good reaction. They had an awesome match. Just another awesome match from these two. If I had to choose, and I was there for both. I was there at SummerSlam too. I would probably put the SummerSlam match slightly over this one. This was still excellent stuff. Still very strong stuff. My fear coming into the match, the fact we were getting this at all was great. But my expectation was, okay, it's on TV. It's going to be a 5 or 10 minute match. It'll end in Rollins getting DQ'd the same way that he did last week. That did not happen. They got pay-per-view level time. The crowd was into every moment of this. And we had a relatively clean finish with Rollins winning with the curb stomp. And I'm thinking, why are they bringing another stretcher for this? Like, it's just a curb stomp. And I'm like, oh. And I wasn't listening on commentary because we were there. But I'm like, oh shit, that's the whole story of the feud. That the curb stomp was going to put Edge out and all this other stuff, and it might end his career, and that's what they're kind of playing up here. I love that. I love the post-match promo from Rollins backstage, acting actually concerned over Edge's well-being. Rollins hitting the glam slam on Edge made me want to even see that tag team match more. That intergender mixed tag team match with Rollins and Becky against Edge and Beth Phoenix. Phoenix and Edge were both going back and forth with Becky on Twitter a few years ago. I would love to see that brought back in 2021. Becky's a heel now. Rollins is a heel now. I see no reason why you can't do the match. The only issue is that Becky's currently tied up with Bianca, so you can't do it anytime soon. Though that's what I would love to see at some point. I think that would be a perfect match to do. But at any rate, though, this was a great match. Edge hit a pedigree, Rollins kicked out. I'm pretty sure he hit a spear, Rollins kicked out. This was just great stuff. The crowd was into every moment of it. The only nitpicking thing was the fucking kid behind me screeching at the top of his lungs, reverse, 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 like a million times during the match. Shut the fuck up. And if you're a parent bringing your kid to these shows, you have to have your kid under control. I mean, I've heard adults just go wild too, and they're no better. The drunks of these shows are abysmal. They will not shut the fuck up. It's worse, I feel, and I've been to other sporting events. It is worse at wrestling shows than any other type of event I've ever been to. It doesn't matter if it's an AEW show, WWE show, indie show. There are kids and drunks screaming every 10 seconds. No one cares. Shut the fuck up. Please sit down. It's awful. But other than that, this match was awesome, and I loved every second. So, great stuff here. Do you do the rubber match at Extreme Rules? I mean, they really played up the whole stretcher thing here. Do you do a stretcher match at Extreme Rules? And if so, who wins? I'd be fine with either one. Now that we know Rollins can beat Edge clean, because there was like a ref bump there with Jess getting bumped, and I think Rollins hit Edge with a low blow before kicking him a lot and then hitting him with a curb stomp to put him down for the count. And he took his time with it, too. He took a while before finally pinning Edge, which I'm sure Edge was okay with. Do you do the third match at the next pay-per-view? I mean, it would seem to make sense. It is called Extreme Rules, and I don't think of all the matches they've announced so far for that pay-per-view, we have a single Extreme Rules match in the entire fucking show. I mean, come on, man. What's even the point, then? What is even the point if you're not going to have an Extreme Rules match on the show? That is ridiculous. Just do a Clash of Champions. That's what they do every September anyway. That's so stupid. But regardless, yeah, this was great stuff. I'm looking forward to that inevitable third match, which you know is coming. After that, we had the main event. Just like that, it was main event time. The Rollins, Edge, and main event stuff literally took up the entire second hour of the show. I maintain you could have shaved off a few minutes of either match to give the women their times, specifically Zelina Vega, but you know, it's not even an is what it is type of situation. It's just shitty they didn't have her on the show in any form or fashion. And they also had Lillian Garcia out there too doing the national anthem or the Star Spangled Banner or whatever right beforehand, which was great. I don't know why that didn't air on the show. That was obviously the same way they opened that SmackDown, the first SmackDown after 9/11 20 years ago. How they didn't have that on the show itself, I have no idea. But it was awesome. A great rendition of the Star Spangled Banner from Lillian Garcia right before the show when I had a brain fart there for a second. So anyway, we get to the main event. Street Profits, Usos, SmackDown Tag Team titles. Great match here. These two teams never cease to work well together. This was no exception. Thoroughly enjoyed this. Great match from start to finish. Got a lot of time. Pay-per-view level encounter. Obviously, they want to continue the feud, which is why they ran another DQ for the second straight week between these two teams. This time it was for the titles. But like I said earlier, I honestly thought because this main event of the show and because Brock beat the shit out of the Usos earlier in the evening, I thought we were getting a title change. So I was buying into every near fall. There were a lot of great kickouts here. The crowd was invested towards the end. Roman ultimately interfered to cause the DQ. He's beating up the Profits, going after him, hitting the guillotine choke, all this other stuff. The lights go out. And even before the lights went out, I knew the Demon was probably coming out for two reasons. One, at WrestleVotes kind of spilled the beans on that earlier in the day on Twitter. And two, there was smoke coming from the back of the arena or from like towards the entranceway for literally a solid 2 or 3 minutes before the Demon finally emerged. So I feel like everyone in the arena kind of knew the Demon was coming out. But it didn't matter because as soon as that music hit and as soon as we saw the Demon, the place came unfucking glued. And I posted all my live reaction videos from the show last night here on the channel. Cheap plug, check them out. You can hear it for yourself. I was going nuts. Everyone else was going nuts. It was an amazing moment. So he gets in the ring, does the whole hand thing, which he's been doing since he came back to SmackDown anyway, but it's even cooler when he's the Demon. So he gets in the ring, confronts Roman. Amazing moment. We haven't seen the Demon on WWE TV since SummerSlam 29. Or no, wait. That wasn't the last time. I'm thinking it was at SummerSlam. It actually wasn't. That's pretty cool. So I thought he was, because he's done the Demon. He did the Demon for like 3 SummerSlams in a row. SummerSlam 2016, he beat Rollins as the Demon. SummerSlam 2017, he beat Bray Wyatt as the Demon. And then SummerSlam 2018, he beat Baron Corbin as the Demon. 2019, he lost to Bray Wyatt, or The Fiend rather, the debut of The Fiend, but he wasn't the Demon. So I don't think I've seen the Demon at all in 2.5 years since Super Showdown, if I remember correctly, in June of 2019 when he faced Andrade. Completely forgettable. It was one of the Saudi shows, one of those awful Saudi shows. The match wasn't what it could have been. But he was the Demon on that show as well, I believe. And then before that, I believe he was the Demon for WrestleMania 35 when he beat Bobby Lashley for the Intercontinental Championship in a matter of minutes. So great to see the Demon back here. I agree with the masses. Yes, it probably should have been saved for the pay-per-view. But you want to close out the show with a major moment. You want to create a hell of a hook, and you really want to send the crowd home happy and make a moment in MSG. That's how you fucking do it. What an ending to the show. So, I'll mention this real quickly. This did not air on the show, but as soon as the show went off the air, they kind of played up the face-to-face between Roman and Balor for a little while, for like a minute or so before Roman and the Usos walked to the back. Corbin's music hit. No one knew it was him because they didn't show his video wall until like 30 seconds later. But Corbin has great new music. The whole Happy Corbin stuff, I'm digging. I think it's hilarious. So Corbin comes out. He's dancing around the ring, kind of dancing around Balor. Balor goes to the outside of the ring, does, I think, a Superman punch to Corbin on the outside, and then a sling blade to Corbin on the outside before Drew McIntyre comes out. Now, this was called, in the billing of it, leading up to the event, a Super SmackDown. I don't think that's what they called it on TV, but the font was in red, and we were led to believe that Raw stars would be on the show. Actually, the way they did it was actually brilliant. So they didn't have the Raw stars on SmackDown itself, nor should they have, but they were at SmackDown in the pre-show match and the dark match afterward. In both dark matches, or we had 3 dark matches technically. The one beforehand, unless there was another one, but we had Charlotte and Rhea, and then obviously this match with Drew. So it was cool they had the Raw stars there, but they just weren't on the show, which I just don't think is necessary when you have a brand split. So I thought that was great. Drew and Corbin was pretty much what you would expect it to be. They've already had like 3 matches in the last year, so this was no different than any of those other encounters. Drew won, or no, he actually won by DQ. I'm not really sure why they felt the need to protect Corbin here. Maybe just because he became Happy Corbin. It's a fucking dark match. Who cares? But Corbin attacked him with a chair. McIntyre got out of it. He hit Corbin with the chair, hit the Claymore kick after a very loud 3-2-1, and that was that. So as soon as that wrapped up, out came Roman and the Usos again for the second dark match. And I don't know how many dark matches they've been doing at SmackDown lately, but this one had 2 of them. Very rarely did they have 2. But SmackDown ends at 10. There's no 205 Live. You can get away with doing 2 dark matches, especially when they don't last long. We almost left to go catch a train, but it's like, this thing is going to be so short, it doesn't even matter. So yeah, Roman and the Usos came out. Roman, as he has in all the other dark matches, wearing his street clothes. I think he was wearing a Bloodline shirt and like regular pants, which was funny. Out came the Mysterios and then John Cena. So yes, John Cena was in the building. He was advertised for the show like a month and a half ago. Got an amazing reaction. This was his final WWE show for a while. Because he was advertised for this like a month and a half ago as part of the Summer of Cena tour. But he's not advertised for anything else going forward for a very long time. Like, he's not advertised at all, but I assume he won't be back for at least until maybe Mania season, if not later or so. Maybe Mania season in April, and then beyond that, who knows. But he got an amazing reaction. The match was pretty basic. The Heat segment went on for way too fucking long, with Roman and the Usos beating up on Dominic for like 30 minutes. It was a much longer match than I was expecting, but Cena got an easy payday out of it. He was out on the apron for a while, tagged in, ran roughshod on the Usos and Roman. I believe he hit Roman with an AA, pinned one of the Usos with an AA, and that was it. So they sent the crowd home happy. No one got out of their seats for John Cena. Everyone wanted to see him, and why wouldn't they? I mean, it was a very special return for Cena to MSG, and it was really cool that we got to see him in person before he takes another sabbatical, hiatus, whatever you want to call it, from the company. Overall, though, in-person experience, amazing. The show itself, amazing. Best SmackDown of the year, one of the best WWE shows I've seen all year. And that includes probably NXT. I mean, this was a really, really strong show. You can't do this every week, but it drives home the point. They need to put more effort into their weekly shows. It doesn't have to, you can't have Brock Lesnar and Edge on every episode of Raw or SmackDown, but like, you can still put in the same amount of effort. Give matches more time. Give us matches we want to see. You can't have a hot crowd every single week. And part of it does fall on the crowd. Some of these crowds for these shows, I don't blame them because the shows are so bad, but some of these crowds could very much be a lot louder than they are. That was not a problem with this show, though. MSG was on fucking fire all night long for the pre-show match, the show itself, the dark match stuff. Great shit. And I really enjoyed myself. Like I said earlier, this was probably the one of, if not the best television shows of any Raw or SmackDown I've ever been to, and I've been to a lot. My first ever WWE show was a SmackDown ECW taping in November of 2009. Obviously, this was better than that, but I've been to a lot of Raws and a lot of SmackDowns, including some at the Garden itself, and this was a blast. So kudos to WWE for putting together such a great show. The amazing thing is that they have Raw on Mondays, and the show is fucking dog shit. So why can't you put forward this same type of effort with the same creative team on Mondays in addition to Fridays? I have no idea why. It's just bizarre to me. But this was great stuff. Speaking of Raw, real quickly, they did advertise Randy Orton challenging Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship, not at Extreme Rules, and they'll probably still do the match then, but rather this Monday on Raw. Why are they constantly advertising matches that aren't being delivered on? I mean, they're doing it, but they're just doing it like 3 weeks early, billing it 3 days in advance. It's a WWE title match. The whole purpose of Raw this week was to have MVP and Lashley face Orton and Riddle for the Raw Tag Team titles. Didn't they earn that shot a week ago? Why are they doing the WWE title match on Monday? It's so fucking weird. So I don't know what's going on with Raw. We'll find out on Monday. I would love for AEW to push these people further and put forth better content like they did tonight. Raw is just a lost cause at this point. Draft, no draft, doesn't matter. The show sucks. At least SmackDown is consistently firing in all cylinders for the most part. Not a perfect program by any means, but there's a lot of stuff I'm digging right now. Great roster, great storylines, great matches, and it's become a weekly treat on Friday nights for the better part of the past year. Real quickly, I did actually meet Brian Gewirtz right before the show started. We were sitting in the VIP reception area in the Delta 360 Club, and we're walking around, and I came across Brian Gewirtz, and I introduced myself. I didn't take a picture or anything, but I just said, hey, man, fan of your work. I saw you in all the documentaries, thought I recognized you. Have a great night, man, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, he was cool, and I don't know why Brian Gewirtz was there, but he was. So I saw him. I saw Peter Rosenberg there. Didn't talk to him. I really have no desire, but Peter Rosenberg was there. In addition to, like, literally, we're sitting down on the couch, hanging out, having drinks and whatever. And then right behind us, Alexis and I, is Stephanie McMahon, who I mentioned earlier. She was part of the pre-show festivities with the whole Never Forget documentary. She was there standing to Nick Khan. I saw Nick Khan like 3 times last night in person, like right in front of me. I didn't talk to him, didn't introduce myself, no reason to. But it was just fucking funny. I mean, this guy responsible for all these firings and departures and releases is like literally a couple of feet away from me, talking to Stephanie. So it was quite the who's who right before the show, and I had a great time. Can't thank WWE enough for the opportunity to go get to watch SmackDown Live, the great seats, some of the best seats I've had at a show like that almost ever, and especially at the Garden. It was very special. So, yeah, thank you guys for checking out this review. I appreciate it. I'm going to try to go back to doing SmackDown audio reviews every week. We haven't been consistent with it lately just because I've been on a lot of trips, a lot of wrestling shows. They're going to be slowing down for right now going forward. I have other stuff going on. I'm going to try to do one next week. It's not guaranteed. I probably, remembering now, I actually might be away next week, so the answer is probably no. If anything, it might be on Sunday. Maybe. Probably not, now that I think about it. I hate to say I'm going to be doing more of these and then not do it, but thinking about it now, I just might not have an opportunity to do it, so whatever. But if so, I'll be back probably in 2 weeks to cover SmackDown there at that point here on the channel. So be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content right here on the channel. And hit the bell button as well to be notified every time a new video goes up. And like I said earlier, check out all my live reactions from SmackDown Live in the building last night at MSG. Took reactions of myself reacting to Roman Reigns coming out, his big entrance at the beginning of the show, Brock Lesnar's entrance, Becky Lynch's entrance, Edge's entrance, Seth Rollins' entrance, Finn Balor's Return of the Demon, and more. So, and also Cena's entrance from after the show went off the air. So check all those out. If you like what you see, you like what you hear, subscribe. I appreciate your guys' support. Have an awesome weekend, guys. Once again, my thoughts, prayers, condolences to everyone affected by 9/11 20 years ago today. It's wild to think it's been that long. I was just a kid at that point. I was in first grade, I think, when that happened. I have a very, very, very loose memory of what was going on at that point, what I was experiencing. But never forget, remember those that were affected, still being affected today, those that lost their lives on that very fateful day. So, very happy to be doing a stream or a video here today to commemorate those affected by that tragedy 20 years ago today. Have a great one, guys. Never forget, I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.